Hello, today I'm starting a new series on Jupiter through the houses. So I'm going to go through Jupiter's, because obviously it's the most benevolent of all planets. So I'm going to go through all the indications just so that we can learn a little bit more about it. And then we go through for the different ascendants. And so Jupiter is obviously Jiva Karaka, the very first thing, and that is the planet of vitality and life, basically. So it's the most benefic of all planets, and the ruler of the natural ninth and 12th house of the zodiac. So Sagittarius and Pisces are ruled by Jupiter. They're completely different there in their feeling. Jupiter in the ninth house will be more for pilgrimage, education, higher education, doctorates, master's degrees, justice, law, culture. It's a trinal house, and it's all those kind of Sagittarius, much more focused, much more preaching, religious, knowledgeable, and high wisdom. In Pisces, it's much more optimistic, much more letting go, much more to do with the vision of the bigger picture, making things very spiritual, and travel. Both of them actually has of travel, both ninth and 12th house. Ninth house is obviously more like pilgrimage, where you go and come back. So you might go either for religious reasons or for education when it's activated, and you will return home. And so let's have a look at the kind of things to do with that. It's obviously a planet of morals, courtesy, and devotion. And it's open-minded, spiritual. And Jupiter is also the significator of natural houses, second house, fifth, ninth and 11th house of the zodiac. So by that I mean that it rules house of family, wealth, values, opportunities, children, obviously, with fifth house and everything, luck, happiness, growth, education, travel, and knowledge. It's the significator of teachers and role models that we attract. People who guide us through life and help us to actually put us on our path, our dharma, and give us knowledge and higher knowledge. It's also the significator of children, which is our most creative part of a human being, and is obviously creations and being creative, and all of that is very massive part of human life, really. It's also like when we got a really good fifth house, all things to do with the fifth house are really magical to us. It's so creative, and it's so willing to be self-sacrificing and devotional towards our child. It's very romantic. It's really rules like the physical heart, like Leo, that kind of thing. So it's just pretty outstanding, really. And they are like our biggest blessings of life, and our commitments to them is highly vibrational in the biggest scheme of things. So the energy we put into them help us increase the strength of our fifth house. It's also the significator of husband material. So a woman can be, or a man can, attraction will be like Mars. Obviously Venus for heterosexuals, the more gay couples Mars is still the attraction. But Mars obviously what we'll be attracted to, but Jupiter will be the husband material. So it's very different when a woman chooses to set up home with somebody than somebody who is just like looking good, just like thinking, are they going to be reliable when I have be set up home and have children. So Jupiter will, a really good Jupiter in somebody's female's chart will indicate that they want to have a partner for life, so they can bring and support their child, be very committed to the family. Jupiter rules the northeast of properties, generally speaking, in Vastu, and it's the condition of the chart. It shows the optimism and happiness of the person. So whether or not somebody can look at their situation like glass half full or glass half empty, and that's how their approach to life is really. So, but the good thing is, obviously, even if you have got a difficult Jupiter in your chart, with transits, we always get, even if it's not a good planet for you, I think it's much more blissful when it's in transit. And also with different dashas, it kind of really helps to activate that that Jupiter for the better. Excuse me, they're just checking my internet. So obviously the planet of opportunities, wherever it goes in the chart, you have that premise there of opportunities and situations occurring that the Jupiter will help you achieve, so you can tap into that. Jupiter is friendly with the Sun, Moon, Mars and Ketu. It's enemies with Mercury and Venus, and neutral towards Saturn. It spends roughly about a year in any sign, but it does retrograde back too during that time. But generally speaking, it takes 12 years to go around your chart, so 12-year cycle. So when you have a Jupiter return, that is 12 years have gone by. And it's a sign that allows you to explore the indications of the house and gives you opportunities, with its transits. It's exalted in Cancer at 5 degrees, the home of family, early education, nurture and stability, and love of homeland. It's debilitated at 5 degrees of Capricorn, which is sign of strive, climbing the ladder, ambition, government structure, and wanting more and more. And Motrikona is Sagittarius, 0 to 10 degrees in Mula Nakshatra, where you get to the bottom of things, build yourself a really firm foundation, and then build on that. That's what really Jupiter is best at, really. Just like, it's not a credit card, it is to do with wealth, but it's not a credit card type of wealth. It's not like Rahu. It's a type of money that gives you pleasure. So it's not necessarily always like extravagant in that sense. It's very much like build really good foundations and then have the focus, and having focus for that because of Sagittarius. Jupiter is a planet that gives you the big picture, philosophy, travel, culture and luck, happiness and wisdom, religion and spiritualities and other realms, charity. And because it's exalted in the fourth house of the natural zodiac, charity begins at home and a homeland first, and that will make you really happy. And women, especially mothers who are mothering a child, nursing a child. In Sagittarius, as I said, is focused and righteous, preaching and committed to goal-oriented and religious. In Pisces, it's open-minded, big-hearted, creative, more forgiving, bigger picture, and more spiritual rather than religious. Okay, so wherever it's kind of wherever it sits in your chart, it kind of protects that house and protects 7 houses from it by aspect, but it's got special aspects, 5th and 9th house, so a trinal one as well. So 5th house is from it. You also include the house that's sitting in. So if it's in your first house, aspects the 5th, 7th and 9th house. Gets directional strength in the first house. It's obviously in the, you can imagine it's high consciousness and high awareness spirituality, happy-go-lucky, that kind of thing. It's amazing. It's also, when it's in good condition, it can be really open-minded and tolerant, forward-looking, forward-thinking, positive and optimistic. Makes a fantastic advisor. All of these things that I'm saying, if it's in good condition, helps to move you forward. It kind of rules bankers, financiers, economists, judges, lawyers, generals. What else can I say about it? Spiritual advisors, professors, teachers, those kind of jobs, and justice. And it's also obviously rules justice, law, morals, ethics, universal law, social justice, and also it can be very idealistic and moralistic as well, because it is, you'll find that no planet is 100% brilliant, really, so there's always things going on. It is planet of joy and expansion, so the transit of that can have similar effects. Expansion, particularly if it's in the first house or aspect in the first house. But definitely, it's a first house. So respect and tolerance, affluence is all the other things that you can say about it. It rules fat, liver, high cholesterol, and edema when you actually get water retention. It rules Thursdays, colour yellow or mustard, and it also rules yellowy kind of diamonds and citron gems as well. Obviously it rules Thursdays. It's debilitated, we said, in Capricorn at 5 degrees, but it's also it's not happy in Mercury signs. Mercury and Jupiter together, because they're both planets of teaching, learning, I should say, really, because obviously Jupiter is planet of very much to do with learning and publishing, because of the 9th house. Mercury is very much like information. Mercury can be gossipy, and fast information. But whereas like Jupiter is more like wisdom and high knowledge, that kind of thing. So this is the reason why it feels a little bit nervous in those sort of, it can be a little bit like, because obviously it expands everything, and Mercury can be very sort of multi-talented. It can like give you too much of everything, so it can be a little bit exhausting. So that's why it creates problems when it's in Mercury and nakshatras, Mercury signs, being aspected with Mercury or conjunct with Mercury, because it's just like so much information, whereas like the focus goes out of Jupiter and becomes too much into everything. And obviously because it's a planet of judgment as well, so it can be a bit judgmental about those things. So I find that, like if you it almost creates problems with learning, actually. So like for example, Jupiter in Purva Bhadrapada can be like it finds it really difficult sometimes learning, but but it could be that it's much more of like a visual learner rather than theoretical, because it kind of overdoes things, and the person could be like constantly wanting to learn, and particularly in certain nakshatras and things like that, it can really give you that like, oh, I want to learn so much, but you don't really absorb the information. It's just about going through it, but not necessarily absorbing the information or application of the information. Obviously not friendly with Libra, because they're both planets benefics, but Jupiter is much more like discerning. It's kind of what it is actually. Jupiter is much more it's a little bit judgmental, whereas Venus is not judgmental. It's a teacher to everybody. It's not going to judge you in a sense that you think, oh, you come from a poor background, you come from, that kind of, your family's got money or anything like that, or maybe your family's religious or atheist. Whereas Jupiter can be a little bit more choosy about who they actually spend their time with. So you can definitely see that. Jupiter and Venus are quite an interesting one as well. So Jupiter, Venus, or Jupiter in Venus houses, it can give dissatisfaction as well, because there's always like, oh, I could, particularly in love, because Venus is planet of love. So with Venus, it can just get like, oh, it can be like, the person could be a really, really nice guy or nice lady, and they're just like, oh no, but they just did that wrong. They could be a little bit like that too. So yeah, it's interesting. So we need to like rein it in a sense. If Jupiter is in the fourth house as well, so it gives you luxurious homes and luxurious cars and things like that, because wherever it is, it's bigger than normal. That's definitely the focus. So these are the things to do with Jupiter. As I said, it's got directional strength in the first house, so it gives the person much more focus, a jovial personality, and fun to be with. I have an uncle of mine. I don't know his chart, but I can bet you bottom dollar that he has got Jupiter in the first house, because he's always struggled with his weight, and he is quite expansive. Midriff region, and he's just very fun to be with. He's just got that lovely, I wouldn't say, because sense of humor is much more to do with Mercury, but it's just the happiness, sharing, and whenever we used to go out, as a family and everything, we would stop more often than normal to eat or drink something, and he wants everybody to have fun. So that is very much Jupiter. And I think I did say, but it does rule, Jupiter rules Thursdays. So Jupiter, obviously, just wanted to say that we all get to have a go at Jupiter in the first house at some point, hopefully, if the dashas line up, Mahadasha's planetary periods occur. And definitely in transits too. So there's this. So, but also have a look at other Vargas or divisional charts. In Vedic astrology, there are plenty of them. And have a look and see what condition your Jupiter is in different Vargas. And obviously, if Jupiter, you're going through a Jupiter dasha or subdasha, but particularly if you're going to the main Mahadasha of Jupiter, you can have a look and see in different Vargas if it is in the ascendant of any of those, because they also get activated with that too. It rules 3 nakshatras, Purnavasu, which is Jupiter nakshatras are always between two signs. So it's between Gemini and the first 3 degrees 20 of Cancer. So last 10 degrees of Gemini, 20 to 30 degrees, and first 3 degrees 20 of Cancer. And then also the last 10 degrees of Libra, and the first 3 degrees 20 of Scorpio. So that's Libra and Scorpio. And then also rules last 10 degrees, and that nakshatra in between Libra and Scorpio is called Vishaka. And then we have also Purva Bhadrapada, which is the last 10 degrees, so 20 degrees to 30 degrees of Aquarius, and first 3 degrees 20 of Pisces. So these are the 3 nakshatras. So with the dasha, those 3 nakshatras will get activated. And so what else do I want to say? Yeah, so just remember that, so we all get a little bit of a go at, during those dashas. And also, just wanted to also say that everything that I'm saying is for a Jupiter that has got, I'm not considering any kind of conjunctions or aspects, just purely the house placements. Jupiter in the 7th house. So this is a wonderful position in the sense that Jupiter will be in an angle house, so it's a strong position. Angles are the pillars of our life. They really are the 4 angles, very much are to do with things, destinations, very prominent in the chart. Now, obviously, this is Jupiter in the 7th house, where normally Jupiter gets directional strength in Vedic astrology in the 1st house. So gives you much more focus in that sense to be able to navigate through your chart with wisdom. When it's in the 7th house, that wisdom is going towards other people, not really going towards, because it wants to preach to the others. So it's a little bit like, so if you have this and you're finding that it has got issues, attached to it, even though it's supposed to be benefic, and it obviously does. Jupiter's aspects, on the first house particularly, is very, very blissful. But normally Jupiter, wherever it's sitting, it's not blessing it as well as it's doing the other houses that it's actually aspecting. And obviously the other thing is as well, Jupiter is planet of truth, and this is house of getting on with other people. It's ruled by Venus, so it kind of has that connotation. It's like being in Venus's sign, and therefore, because it's not friendly towards Venus, it can have. I find normally this gives people, anytime you have Venus and Jupiter together, or Venus in Jupiter's sign, or Jupiter in Venus's sign. Even though I know it doesn't necessarily mean that in your own chart it has got that kind of thing, but what it does, people are really fussy about partners, picking partners, and they can really have a vision of their partner, which is sometimes can be quite idealistic. So it's quite nice to know this when you're younger and just see how you are, in terms of choosing partners or letting partners go because of certain things. And it would be nice to know what your feelings are, literally, regarding this placement. From 7th house, which is a Karma Tricone activated by Jupiter. Jupiter will be aspecting the 3rd house and also aspecting the 11th house. So this person will be highly friendly, will really be connected nicely to brothers, elder and younger sisters, elder siblings, elder brothers, whatever, and cousins too. And also we'll get lots of joy out of colleagues and neighbours. Will be just like very aware of everybody around them, very blissful, and just literally, they want to spend time and communicate with everybody, and jovial, that wonderful Jupiterian ways where glass is always half full or even overflowing is going into those houses. So in a sense, you can say that from the 7th house, 3rd house of desire. So this is so they desire to be quite creative, quite communicative, like to be around friends and siblings and all of that kind of stuff, like to learn skills, like travel, like to their thinking process is quite positive, and they're very able to express themselves in a very knowledgeable, wise way. So they can people can see their viewpoint nicely, in a nice, very mature and very effective way. Jupiter is very good at things like that. It's just can make that situation quite optimistic, create opportunities with friends, learning, travel, creative endeavours, all artistic things. And also will be aspecting 11th house of gains. And in a sense, this will mean that through the relationship you will have gains. Through friends, you could meet somebody who could become your potential partner. They also 11th house of gains, so they don't necessarily, some people have got to put a lot of effort into making their 11th house give some fruits. This way, particularly if Jupiter is in a good way, it's just these are the people who don't necessarily work harder, they just work smarter. That's what the creation is too. So yeah, in that sense, it's absolutely amazing. So 7th house, obviously, marriage, partnerships, relationships, any form of partnerships as well, whether it's work to do with, if you have a kind of job and you and your colleague do kind of secondments together or do projects together, that is a partnership. It's also a sexual house. It's house of exchange of energy. So it's because obviously sexual thing is exchange of energy, but it's also important export, commerce, business, Marketplace is seventh house Libra, where you actually through negotiations and diplomacy, you create situations which is good for you and good for the other person. It has a harmony, so you try to iron out any issues between you. You can be the bigger person normally if your seventh house is in good condition. You can really overlook and just kind of think, yeah, I can deal with that. You know, okay, so my partner, business partner, my husband, my wife, whatever, they might not be great at this, but I can see that they're great at this, that, and I'm not going to just pick a fault with this tiny little thing when they do so many things, and I do love them and I feel kind of supported by them. Why would I do this? So it's like very much like that kind of situation where you don't kind of cut your nose and spite your face, if you like. That is very much the case. It's how we negotiate too, and our public image is seen through this house too. And normally, because it's house of justice, and it can actually be law as well, even though ninth house could be too. But seventh house in a sense is that too, but it's definitely to do with your career. You can see a lot about your career and how well you do in that, you know, like having a successful career by looking at your seventh house for sure. Okay, so we've discussed that, and the other thing obviously, so bearing in mind that Jupiter is a little bit, what happens is they say in the text normally is that the guru, which is Jupiter, is so involved in sorting out other people's life or things that they kind of overlook their own family, their child and their wife. They could be too much into, I help my friends, I help my colleagues, I help my neighbour, I help my networks, I help my elder sibling, but what about the family? So they can actually not be so available. That's definitely is in the text, and I know I have seen that time and time again where people who have this placements with the Venus Jupiter thing going on, there is kind of dissatisfaction in the sense that there is always thinking that they could do better, and they could really bypass a lot of wonderful people because they're looking for this idealistic person which might not even exist, and they could literally have all these because they're looking for somebody who they think, okay, it's going to look like this, going to have this degree, it's going to live this place, it's going to have these sort of connections. But that was the very first person they met, and that person, they let them go because they were just thinking, you know, so I just wanted to put that there. Let's have a look at the ascendants now. For Aries ascendant, Jupiter rules 9th and 12th house. So very wonderful planet for them in the sense that 9th house is a very good trinal house. And 12th house is not really, it's an impressionable house. So although it's a Dishtana house, it doesn't spoil the yogas, good yogas in a sense. However, the other thing that you've got to just see, obviously it makes you spend money, makes you kind of have some losses too, but not too bad at all. And what happens is Jupiter is also friendly to Mars, so that is so it is a good planet for Aries ascendant. And when it goes into the 7th house, it'll be ninth house rule in the 7th house. So this is going to be pretty amazing for them in the sense that it creates a really nice Raja Yoga of success and achievements. And obviously from there it's going to be aspecting the 3rd house Gemini and increasing their creativity. So they could be multifaceted, can possibly be really good at interior design, or they can have a look at something and they could just kind of work it, because this is their house. Gemini is so multi-talented, and when you have that aspect of blessings of Jupiter expanding that, they could be so multi-talented. They can make things with their hands, whether it's they can cook and they can they have that magic touch, and obviously 11th house, which is Aquarius, so they will have lovely friends because this is obviously their natural 11th house of the zodiac as well, so it's blessing them. And those friends can be for a lifetime too, so they might actually have fewer friends because the nature of Saturn, but these friends will be like friends that they will have for a really long time. And they learn with this placement that if there are issues, because Aries ascendant naturally 11th house can create issues for them because it's the Badak house, so and normally Saturn and the 11th house, you know, I have got a video about Badak. It can actually give them some issues, so they normally find that they have losses through friends, or they lose friends and things like that. But when they work at it and work and give their friends the time and the energy required for the friendship, they can keep their friends for a long time, and this will give them very nice friends too, very well travelled, cultured, you know, the wisdom loving and spiritual friends. For Taurus ascendant, Jupiter obviously rules their 8th and 11th house, and when it goes into the 7th house for them will be Jupiter in Scorpio. So Jupiter does pretty well in Scorpio, and it'll be aspecting the first house, which is lovely. So this is one placement that actually, because once it goes into a friendly sign, it does work better. But it is the 11th house and 8th house ruler. So by the sheer fact that it's doing that, it's not great. Great planet for them. So some level of changes in relationships status, whether it's divorce or mass sudden changes in the relationship can occur. But however, because it's ruling it rules the 11th house and aspect in the house, it will actually protect that house, and it means that they could gain a relationship, they can gain through the relationship or through their friends, and obviously it'll be aspecting its exaltation sign, which is Cancer. So this means that they could be, them and their partner, both of them can be very much into occults. They could be very, very good about researching things in order to kind of invest something, because it could be like sudden earnings as well. So it could help their situation, because obviously Jupiter is exalted in that. But yeah, definitely they will really enjoy their friends. And Pisces is also a sign of feet, and they could be really good dancers too, and they just really enjoy dancing or walking, doing things to do with feet, you know, have like a reflexology every now and then, you know, that kind of activates your 11th house of gains. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, even a pedicure or something like that is really good. So activate your 11th house. We're just walking on the beach, walking barefoot or something like that activates that. It's amazing. From this position, so wonderful. And for Gemini ascendant, Jupiter in the 7th house will be Jupiter in own sign, Sagittarius, nice and strong. This is wonderful because it's 10th house and 7th house rulers, so they will have a wonderful, respectful image to the world for their karma, for work, highly respected, highly knowledgeable. People will enjoy working with you, and you'll always have people's back, things like that. So it really protects the 7th house, and obviously it's aspect in the 1st house, making, you know, your partner makes you happy, it's such a wise, learned person. And it's a nice one, this one too. So and then Cancer ascendant, Cancer, for them having Jupiter in the 7th house will be Jupiter in debilitation sign, which is Capricorn. For you, Jupiter rules 6th and 9th house. 6th house is obviously conflicts, work, applying service jobs, things like that. 9th house is obviously to do with education and your dad. And actually, because it's Pisces, so when 9th house falls in the 12th house of natural zodiac, it could be that you actually go abroad for your higher education, or pilgrimage or something, or with your father. But it could also be that your job or your education creates debts for you, student loans, things like that. Or there could be some kind of discord. They normally have either a discord with their dad, or it does get better because it's six houses, Upachaya house, and so, or it could just be that you work in like a legal jobs, that kind of thing. And actually, going into from the sixth house when it goes into the seventh house, so you could deal with things like jobs such as because obviously Capricorn is highly upward looking kind of job as well. So it could just be you work in legal, matrimonial issues, mediation, divorce, family law, that kind of stuff. It could also be that you work as a social worker, because you could be an advisor, that kind of thing. And but generally speaking, it will give quite good success in work. And that kind of discord, which obviously this could also be that your first marriage, you have a divorce, because ninth house is legal, because obviously it creates this Raj Yoga, but it gets spoiled because of the sixth house association. However, it can it'll be, once you've gotten over and maybe the first relationship breaks down, then after that there is this kind of Jupiter wisdom kicks in, and you kind of, maybe you married for too young or something, and that through waiting for the right person and not jumping to marriage so quickly, that will be the answer. Definitely the job could be legal. You could also work with pets too, or work in the travel industry, as another suggestion too. Then we have Leo ascendant. For you, seventh house will be Aquarius, and Jupiter rules fifth and eighth house for you when it goes into the seventh house. So you can see that there could be divorce, or changes of circumstance, or marriage itself will be wholly transformational for you. It will totally change your world in a sense. It is also your fifth house ruler in the seventh house, and eighth house association does not take anything away from that yoga. That Raj Yoga will be absolutely there. And also you could be working with younger people, young students, and also it could be like something that's connected to your big groups of friends as well. But generally speaking, this is quite a nice setting. Jupiter doesn't do too badly in Aquarius because it's kind of neutral to Saturn, and it doesn't feel like restricted like it does in Capricorn. But yes, so it's highly intelligent. You could have an intelligent, creative partner who's quite fun, and that kind of stuff. He or she could be into astrology too, which is lovely. And they could make really good advisors in a sense as well. So they will research everything. They do a lot of self-help if they get into any problems. And they use that wisdom in order to deal with not just things to do with work, but also relationship too, through wisdom, and and they'll be quite good at mediation too, in a sense, because that is the sign Scorpio, original eighth house of the zodiac. There could be obviously some issues with children too there, in a sense, so to begin with, but obviously you can work on that, and never lose hope. That's what I always say, like young students, they could just drive you mad sometimes, but it's not too bad though, in a sense. And these people could also be quite charitable. Their partner could be from a network of groups and friends who help children charities, do creativity networks and things to help raise money for students, that kind of thing. But very intelligent partner too, fifth house in ruler in the seventh. Now for Virgo ascendant, Jupiter in the seventh house will be Jupiter in Pisces, nice and strong in own house. This is much more creative. When seventh house is Sagittarius person can be very kind of truth-seeking, could be more religious. But Jupiter in Pisces is much more spiritual, much more easier going, not so much truth-seeking, going with the flow kind of thing. And this is obviously 4th and 7th house ruler in the 7th house, nice and strong, and really blesses the 1st house and 3rd and 11th house too, which is lovely. And 11th house for them will be where Jupiter is actually exalted too, so they will have wonderful friends. They really enjoy them, and they're really blessed with gains from their friends as a result. For Libra ascendant, Jupiter is 3rd and 6th house ruler. A bit difficult, but you know, this is something that gets better with time. They learn to get brave, to speak and express themselves, and get into a habit of having really good daily routine, exercise, nutrition, that kind of thing does Libra ascendants a world of good. In the 7th house will be Jupiter in Aries. It's a friendly sign, and it's much more impulsive, Jupiter, in a sense. It's a bit more like a military man, because Jupiter can be the general. This could be house of like Mars house. It could be anything from fire engines to police, rescue, I don't know what else really, security, army, any kind of forces, that kind of husband or wife. And yeah, so it would quite high ranking though, in a sense, but nice placement. And because it's also 6th house ruler in the 7th house, it shows the type of work that they will be doing too. And these people also could be working for themselves because of the 3rd and 6th house connection. They put a lot of effort into their job, so they're more likely to build it from scratch themselves, and in order to have a really nice public image. So they could also be in litigation jobs, service jobs, medical jobs, and particularly if it falls in the first few, first kind of 10 degrees, 13 degrees, 20 of Aries. But, from there, it's obviously Jupiter's aspecting own sign, which is Sagittarius. So there'd be wonderful wisdom speech, speaking the truth. They could be quite religious in their work in that sense. And also 11th house for them is going to be Leo. So they'll have really powerful friends, powerful networks, or even their elder sibling will be quite maybe even gain money through things like being a leader or something like that. Then for Scorpio ascendant, Jupiter obviously rules 2nd and 5th house. When he goes into the 7th house, Jupiter will not be in a friendly sign, but it creates Raj Yoga anyway. It's like 5th house ruler aspect in the 1st house, 5th house ruler in the 7th house, 2nd house ruler looking at the 1st house, Dhan Yoga, Raj Yoga, so it's pretty amazing. And obviously their job could be much more to do with, it brings together Sag and Pisces effects, and also brings in like Taurus things, which is travel, food, agriculture, all kind of beauty industry, all kinds of things like that. So this could be a Jupiter that actually does advises people, advises families maybe in their job. But they would be very, very, because also Taurus is the 2nd house of natural zodiac. They are devoted to their family. Their values are really high. They could be quite from a very religious family, and where education is very important. So this is a really nice setting in the sense that everything creates wonderful opportunities too. And obviously from there it's aspecting Virgo, which is 11th house, and also aspecting Capricorn too, blessing those two houses. Then we have for Sagittarius ascendant Jupiter in 7th house will be Jupiter in Gemini, aspect in 1st house. So Jupiter for them is 1st and 4th house ruler in the 7th house. Creates a really nice Raja Yoga because 1st house ruler is in the 7th house. Nice yoga there, and makes the person is obviously happy to be in a relationship. They love to communicate with their partner. Their partner could be very they like chit-chatting with each other, and they love being around their friends, and they have like lovely ways of communicating with each other. And they're obviously very happy in their relationship, happy at work too, and highly respected in their job by other people. Their public image is very respectful. People take note of their speech because obviously Gemini is the natural speech house. Then for Capricorn ascendant, Jupiter is 3rd and 12th house ruler. When it's in the 7th house, Jupiter is exalted, so this is pretty amazing. Exalted Jupiter aspect in the 1st house, beautiful. It's not the best planet for them because obviously 3rd house is an Upachaya house, so it's going to give them like they have to really build their bravery and will and courage. And 12th house ruler as well, so there's going to be some expenses in a sense. So getting married could create expenses for them, or they could meet their partner abroad. They also are not very good at communicating with their friends or expressing themselves in relationships or friendships. Therefore, they could actually lose friends or relationships. So they have to work at that. And Jupiter will give them the necessary tools then and wisdom to actually deal with that. But Jupiter when planets are, they got such amazing condition, they can also be a little bit lazy about doing it. They feel as though things should happen naturally and easily. But this is a placement that needs your help to get it going. Otherwise, there could be like losses in lost. That film has got Lost in Translation. That could definitely be the case where they don't express themselves. They hold on to things, and things can really just go wrong unnecessarily. So they need to. And the other thing is also don't lend money to your friends because you can lose your friend and your money. There you are, that kind of thing. So they need to just be more communicative with people, also research things more, get more information if you're booking anything like travel and stuff like that, so you don't unnecessarily go and lose money. For Aquarius ascendant, this is like 2nd and 11th house ruler. Jupiter, so it's a money-making machine. When it goes into the 7th house, will be Jupiter in a wonderful house, Leo, which is a really good, dignified Jupiter, friendly sign to them. Obviously, it gives somebody a very high status job, high status partner, from powerful kind of background, that sort of thing. And also, this is Jupiter naturally, what will do is aspect in the 11th house, own sign. So it really protects all the income, all the money, all the gains, wealth. For sure, it's going to be very good. And just literally blessing that sort of sign. And whenever this is happening, that they don't necessarily they just work smart. They don't have to necessarily work hard to gain the money, particularly if Ashtaka Varga for the 11th house is high, so it's pretty good. And good family values. They probably hang out with people who've got similar values to themselves. Very nice. Jupiter in the 7th house for Pisces will be Jupiter in Virgo. Jupiter rules 1st and 10th house in the 7th house. Very nice. So this will be the 10th house ruler aspect in the 1st house, creates a really nice Raja Yoga of success. And this is going to also be like because it just shows that they can definitely be in job style to do with law, things to do with, depending on what nakshatra is actually, because sometimes I even find they could make things. They could definitely be very they could be in structured kind of counsellors. They could also be to do with social services because it's the natural sixth house of the zodiac. Yeah, they would be very successful in a sense, and they shine at work because they'd be highly respected there. They'll be very good at detail. They'll be meticulous, and they have a high, people around them will actually will really have a lot of respect for them. This is going to be Jupiter that's going to look at all the, because normally Jupiter is big picture. This is obviously not a friendly sign, but this will be a Jupiter that is more likely to have that kind of look at the bottom line and make sure everything kind of adds up, that kind of thing. But because it's a Virgo and it's an unfriendly sign, there can be some issues with that, and they have to be careful not to be too critical of the spouse, and the spouse also do the same. Be careful not to, because the Virgo can be quite critical, sees things that are missing, not the things, all the abundant stuff. And Jupiter should be all about abundance, but nonetheless, that they're highly respected, service-oriented people too. Yeah, so that's it. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thank you.